So, welcome back. We're going live to LinkedIn, also going live out to YouTube. This is week 2 of the LGM, the Lead Generation Masterclass. And I'm your host, Alex Smith, and delighted that you're tuning in today. So, if you were here last week, thank you again for coming this week. We're hoping to roll these out as a weekly exercise, and it's all about adding value and helping you upskill with what you're doing. And before we go into too much of the session, we're just going to welcome those that are in the live room. Thank you to Simon for tuning in. One or two might also tune in into the Google Meets room as well, which is where we're running this. Good to see you. Good to have you with us. So before we dive in, do drop a comment in the live. If you're live on LinkedIn or live on YouTube, do drop a comment in, and love to know where you're joining from. Maybe what specific industry you might be in. That's really helpful. And yeah, I'd just love to see who else is in the room, who else is getting along to these. So last week we talked about what we call the LinkedIn outreach revolution of 2026, and that was all about the big picture changes that were taking place on the platform. This week we're getting a little bit more technical, and we're talking about the single most important piece of your entire LinkedIn outreach strategy, and that is your connection request. We've got a bit of a slide deck that we're going to run through, so uh, bear with us for this. 7 seconds. That's all you get on LinkedIn. It's not a lot. It's a tiny amount of time. And when a decision maker glances at their phone during that coffee break, scrolling through a list of maybe LinkedIn connections, you've got approximately 7 seconds, to make your case, sometimes often less. So in those initial moments, if they're not reading every single word carefully and they're not pondering on the nuances of your pitch, they're making a real rapid instinctive judgment, and that's going to sound a bit like, yes, this person seems worth connecting with, or no, let's just delete them. I kind of tend not to accept connection requests these days. I tend to just be proactive at reaching out to others who I know are good fits, and so it's kind of reverse. But when I go through my inbound connection requests, often they're the more natural ones that people have actually met face to face and people that genuinely want to connect. So they don't put a message. So I don't need to question. I don't need to that waste 7 seconds. I've already met them. I've built the trust, and they go straight into my network. Sounds a bit harsh, doesn't it? But after all your kind of careful research, your thoughtfully crafted message, your genuine desire to help and uh, you know reduces down to just a 7 second scan on a mobile phone screen. But here's the thing: the one thing that you understand what's happening is in those 7 seconds you can actually design an approach to work with human psychology rather than against it, and you can actually um, craft this beautiful connection request that's going to consistently achieve a much higher acceptance rate of maybe 80% or higher. And that's even in today's saturated marketplace. So today's all about showing you how we do that at Leadeth and the components of that. So we call it the subconscious scan. What's really happening in these 7 seconds? Before we dive into the formula, we really need to understand what's occurring psychologically during that 7 second window. And your prospect, they're not going to be engaging in conscious analytical thinking. They're actually doing what researchers call system one thinking. And that is fast, automatic, instinctive mode that our brains often use for quick decisions. And it's the same mental process that we use when deciding whether to trust someone that we've just met at a networking event. It's exactly the same skill. So during this rapid scan, they're asking themselves these questions, and they're not going to be aware of this. It just happens. Does this feel personal or generic? They're going to be thinking. The human brain is, it's really tuned to detect authenticity. And we can sense when someone's written something that's specifically for us versus something that may be copy and pasted to hundreds or thousands of people. And that detection happens instantly below that kind of conscious awareness. So, does this person see me, not just my job title or company, but me as an individual? Have they noticed something specific about my work? Maybe it's my recent posts, my journey, or am I just another name on a list? The next thing they're going to think is, what do they want from me? And this is the big one. If they answer, um, you know, uh, if you're reaching out to someone and they're thinking, they want to sell me something right now, the walls go up immediately. And if the answer whispers they want to connect genuinely, then that curiosity door opens its way. Do you feel safe saying yes? Remember from last week's topic, safety is the new currency. So if accepting this request feels like you're opening yourself up to aggressive sales tactics, or maybe does it feel like you're adding someone valuable to your network? That's the difference. And that's what's going on in people's heads when you're sending these connection requests out. So we've got here 4 acceptance triggers. Value, it's got to be immediate, useful, super helpful to them. Relevance, why them specifically? Trust, mutual connections or positioning, building that trust and recognition, which is paying attention to their work. So all of this processing happens in 7 seconds or maybe less. And it's all happening subconsciously. So your connection request either passes through these filters or it doesn't. And the good news is that once you know these filters exist, it helps you to then craft messages that guide them through effortlessly. So you get a really stronger acceptance rate on LinkedIn. So, and this applies to LinkedIn predominantly, but if you're operating in other platforms, Instagram, maybe your B2C, then some of these principles still apply even on those other platforms. So the 4 components to this formula, we call it the 7-second formula. And, and we've kind of found this after sending thousands of connection requests on behalf of clients, testing countless different variations ourselves. So we've actually distilled what works into a simple 4-component formula, which helps us to create campaigns really effectively, making sure we're hitting all these elements. Now, each component serves a specific purpose, and that is that designed for that 7-second judgment window. So I'm going to break it down. Consists of a hook. So the first 2 seconds maybe would be that hook. The next few seconds is the bridge, what we call the bridge. And then you've got the value proposition, what you bring to the table there. And then we've got a soft close. And that's quite important in terms of how we end that. How do you want to take it further, that connection request? So let's look at the hook. The purpose of the hook is to really interrupt, pattern interrupt, we call it. And it's your opening line. Its job is very singular, and it's just to make them pause. In a sea of, I help uh, tech industry people achieve XYZ result messages, your first sentence really needs to break the pattern, or could we connect? I've had quite a few of those as well. Just could we connect? So it's got a signal immediately that it isn't another copy and paste pitch. And the most effective hooks will do one of 3 things. They'll reference something specific about the individual, not just their company, not just their title, but something that shows you've actually paid attention. It could be something like a recent post they've shared. It could be maybe a comment that they've made, an article that they published, or maybe a transition that they've made in their career. Now, for me, I've recently done a new campaign where I've scraped people using a specific technology and they've commented on that specific post. So my first intro would be about, hey, I noticed your comment, and then I go into it. So you've got to lead with a question that makes them think. Not a sales question. Not are you struggling with lack of customers, or are you struggling with not enough time for operational delivery, or whatever you want to put in there. But it's got to be a real thoughtful question that demonstrates their reality, that you're thinking about, where they're at. So not just your pitch. So hopefully that sharing those observations, things that you've noticed about the industry, their approach, that is all going to help. And here's what doesn't work, as a hook. Completely stating what you do and how you can help, that is not the hook. That's very much a pitch, disguised as an introduction. It triggers, they want to sell me something, and that's alarm bells instantly, shut down, and you'll never chat to them again. The second component is what we call the bridge. Now, this is the credibility builder. So once you've got their attention with an amazing hook, then you need to quickly establish why you're worth knowing. And this isn't about bragging or listing hundreds of credentials. It's actually about creating a bridge of relevance between your world and theirs. And that bridge answers an unspoken question. Why should I care about connecting with this person? So, effective bridges, they're really short and they're very specific, but they're focused on shared context. So, think about common ground. You could say, I've been working with several e commerce brands navigating similar seasonal challenges. If you've picked that up on some of their content and posts, you can go in with the relevant expertise. So you could say, I specialize in helping marketing leaders, picking up on their position, their title. And what I do is I help them build outbound systems that don't feel pushy. Another one is the mutual connections. A lot of people have mutual connections. So you could even pick up on that. I notice we both follow and then name drop the respected industry figure, mutual connection, and share an interest in XYZ. So you're going in really at a personal level with them. And the key is being relevance without arrogance. Yeah. Be super relevant to them as an individual. You're not trying to impress them with how amazing you are. And you're actually trying to show them why a connection really makes sense for both you and them. And hopefully you notice the subtle but crucial difference. One approach is very much a self-focused approach. Look at me, look how great I am. Whereas the other one is much more relational focused. Here's why we should get to know each other. So have that in your mindset throughout. Component 3 of the 4 is what we call the value proposition. And this is the kind of the reason to say yes back. So most people get this completely wrong. They think the value proposition is about their product or service, but it's not. In a connection request, certainly on LinkedIn, the value proposition is about the connection itself. What value does getting to know you and adding you to their network bring? What might they gain from having you as a connection, regardless of whether they even buy from you or not? So, strong value propositions will focus on contribution, not just extraction and taking away. So, think about sharing knowledge. That's a great way in. So, you could put, I regularly share insights about a relevant topic that makes marketing directors found useful and helpful. You could also offer maybe a bit of perspective. So you could say, I work with several companies in your space, and I often see patterns that might be valuable. Or you could even bring a resource. So I've seen a lot of people do that on the connection message. I'm happy to be a sounding board for leaders thinking through X, Y, Z. Name the specific challenge. So you might have noticed the pattern. Every example is about what you give, not what you get. And that's strategic, not altruistic. So when someone accepts your connection request because, you know, they believe that you're going to add value to their network, they're already positively, raving fan of yours at that point, and that's what we want. And you've passed that safety test with flying colors. The final component to that connection message is the soft close, or what we call the easy yes. So you need a close that feels really natural and pressure free. And this is where many connection requests fall apart, even when everything else is rock solid. The hard close in connection requests will often trigger resistance. So you might put something like, "Let's schedule a quick call," or "I'd love to discuss how we can help." Immediately reframe the entire message as a sales attempt. So it's all your work is kind of been undone. Whereas the soft close, by contrast, makes what you say feel very safe and easy. So you can try something like the simple invitation. I'd value the connection if you're open to it. Or you could have what we call the humble ask, which is about, would it make sense to connect? So the onus is on them. And then you've got the no pressure option, which is either way, wishing you, continued success with whatever they were working on. So, the onus is always on them. And that soft close really works because it gives them the control. It doesn't presume and it doesn't push, and it respects their autonomy and their time. So that's something hopefully that you've going to implement into your strategies. But we're going to go through some more examples. And the key thing is to respect. If somebody says no and they don't accept, they're far more likely to then say yes in the future. So if you've got a campaign set up where you're putting out requests and a high percentage, maybe 50% of them are just not accepting, the beauty is if you terminate that and revoke that invitation and it's been done in a kind way, there's a lot more chance of them coming back to you and accepting it on the second round in 3 weeks' time once it's past the LinkedIn limit of reconnecting. So always kind of go out on a positive if you can. Now, the formula in action. Here's an example. So as you can see, we've got this little example here. Hi, Michael. Noticed you're hiring for your sales team. So obviously, someone's done some research here and seen they're recruiting for a position. That's the hook. That's going to get them noticed because obviously this person is currently, going through the pressures of recruitment and all of that. So hopefully, it's going to resonate with them. The bridge. Been through that exact scaling phase myself. It's challenging. So really, kind of bridging where they're at currently to kind of bring it to you and your experiences. You're kind of using a lot of emotive language there, which is really powerful. And then the value proposition, number 3, is I've got a hiring scorecard, which we used to assess 200 plus candidates that might be helpful. So it's just adding value and it's relevant value to them to hopefully for them to think, yeah. And then you've got the soft close, which is happy to share if useful, or you could use that in terms of a connection message again. So we're going to go through a couple more examples. So all of these industry examples utilize the 4-component formula: the hook, the bridge, the value prop, and the soft close. And we'll just go through each one. Now, if you're working on LinkedIn, I would strictly adhere to 100 to 120 character limit on the connection request message. So many characters are just truncated on those connection messages. Only if people actually click on them and then see them in full do they open up. So if you can nail it in the first few characters, you're going to get a much better job at seeing this work out. So my SaaS example here, this is targeting maybe founders, people in charge of a specific product. And I've gone for kind of loved your SaaS churn post. Again, picking up on an insight. I help founders and share retention insights here. So that's like the bridge. And then in terms of the soft close, we've gone for open to connect, and we can put first name in there or name. And that's in the software used to automate this. We actually use first name, and that would then populate it with their first name. So we're using the specific hook, the churn of posts, the churn thing, which they've cited in a post, maybe on LinkedIn. We've got the bridge. The bridge is helping founders to scale. And then we've got the value prop. The value prop, don't forget, it's not what your end product is that you do. What's the value proposition of them connecting with you on LinkedIn? It's to share insights. And then we've got that soft close at the end. All in all, 114 characters. Obviously, the first name could be a long name, it could be a short name, but that should be well within the character ratio. An example for consulting. So this one says, saw your expansion news. I guide ops growth and share scaling tips here daily. I'd value the connect. First sign off with their first name. So value the connection, John, Bob, Dave, whoever they are. So once again, within it's about 115 characters all in. We're leveraging that decision trigger. So the trigger is expansion. We're noticing they're expanding, and we're trying to leverage that. And the hook, that signal, we're understanding that their current world, their current challenges, and we've got that soft close, value. Well, I'd value the connect. So we've left it open with them. For a recruitment context, maybe you're targeting talent acquisition people. So this one, great point on tech hiring. I work with talent leads and share market trends daily. Worth a connection, John, Bob, whoever their first name is. So that's a 116 character message. Again, let's look at it and analyze it. It passes that safety test because it focuses on being a resource, the market trends, rather than maybe a salesperson chasing that transaction. And then we've got that soft closing at the end, worth a connection. Keep it simple, keep it friendly, keep it real. So these are common mistakes that just kill those connection requests that you want to avoid. Now you have an understanding of that four-piece formula. Let's look for the mistakes that are going to sabotage even a kind of well-intentioned outreach message. One of the first mistakes I see so many times is industry jargon and buzzwords often being used. So an example, someone might put, leveraging synergies to drive holistic solutions that optimize your digital transformation journey, blah, 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 blah. So if you cringed at listening to that, good, because your prospects will cringe too. Jargon doesn't make you sound more professional. It actually makes you sound like everyone else. It's just worse. It obscures meaning and it just creates a bit more distance rather than the connection. So you've got to speak like a human talking to another human. Use clear, simple language. If you're using GPTs to prompt, then I always put in, prompt this for a 7 or 8-year-old would understand. And that just puts it into that simple language. And if you can't explain what you do in terms that maybe your grandmother would understand, then you haven't, thought about this clearly enough. You really got to go back, simplify it, and make it really super simple for people to understand. The second mistake that I often see is the high pressure close. Can we schedule a 15-minute call this week? Far too early for that. Far too early. We've got to build the relation up slowly, and it could be maybe 3 or 4 messages time that is more appropriate. But in a connection request, before they've even accepted, before any relationship even exists, that's the equivalent of proposing to someone marriage on the first date. It's just too much, too soon, and it really reveals to them that you're more interested in your own agenda than that genuine connection with them. So the purpose of that connection request isn't just to book a meeting, but it's to establish a connection. Meetings might come later, naturally, when that trust has been built. So just bear that in mind. One of the third common pitfalls that we see as well is making it all about you. So you might want to put, I've seen lots of messages. I'm reaching out because I'm looking for a decision maker and I'm in your industry. I've just launched a new service and I thought you'd be interested, or I'm trying to expand my network in the finance sector, blah, 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 blah. Far too many eyes. So when your connection request centers on your needs and your goals and your objectives, then it's failing that fundamental test. Does this person see me, or am I just a means to their end? Shift that focus, make it all about them, their world, their challenges, their opportunities, not in a manipulative way, but a genuine, caring way. Because if you're not genuinely interested in them, why should you be, why should they reciprocate and be interested in you? So hopefully that's helped with that. Now we've gone through some of those applications. They work really well for kind of a LinkedIn connection outreach message. I know some of you out there are also sending email campaigns, and maybe some of you even sending in mails as an option to try and connect with decision makers. We always have a kind of benchmark test, and last week we spoke about how 2023 we were seeing a lot of people averaging around about the 40 to 60% area, and this year it's kind of dropped right the way back down to like 25%, much lower levels of acceptance rate. The key thing is we're aiming to get an 80%, and that we've mastered it at 80%. If you're kind of below 40, you've certainly you need a bit more work in that, and you've got to try a few more different angles. Keep testing, keep measuring, and that's the key thing. But we're aiming for that 80% acceptance rate. That's the key thing. So split test your hooks. Try a different one. If you're doing 5 a day or 10 a day, split it out, mix it up, and see which one works. You've got to track it. It is quite hard to do that if you're doing it manually. Whereas if you're using automation tools, it's very easy to keep a track on which messaging is working better. You can A/B split test in most software tools these days. So let's get back to some real examples. Again, I love this example. So this is SaaS outreach. So software as a service outreach to maybe a marketing director, kind of messages that I might write. So, hi, Sarah. I noticed your recent post about the challenges of balancing brand building with performance marketing, particularly your point about long term thinking and in a quarterly results world. That resonated deeply. I work with marketing leaders in e-commerce who are navigating this same tension, and I've seen some interesting approaches that preserve brand integrity whilst delivering measurable growth. And then we've got the value prop. I share insights regularly about sustainable marketing strategies that don't sacrifice tomorrow for today's metrics, something that seems aligned with your philosophy. Would it make sense to connect? Either way, I really enjoyed your perspective on building brands that last, and then sign it out as you would sign it out. So this is more of a kind of cold outreach or in-mail style where you can get away with a lot more character count. But the principles still apply. We've got the hook, so we're referencing a specific post, a specific point. That is impossible to copy and paste en masse unless you're using things like Leadeth and Clay and some other tools out there that can do this. You've got that bridge, establishing your relevant expertise without bragging, and then we've got the value prop. We're offering to share insights. We don't want to land them in with meetings or anything like that. It's offer to share insights. That's why we want to connect with them. Focused on giving, not taking. And then the soft close, we've got there. Would it make sense to connect? Yeah. Makes it very easy for them to say yes, being very gracious, even in a potential no. I mean, it's a nice way. So let's look at one more. This example here. So maybe you're consulting outreach to ops leaders. So this example, hi, Michael. Congratulations on the expansion into the Midlands. I saw the announcement last week. Growing into new regions whilst maintaining operational consistency is no small feat. I specialize in helping operations leaders scale processes that travel well, working primarily with distribution companies during expansion phases. It's fascinating work because every region brings unique challenges despite the common playbook. I regularly share what I'm learning about scaling operations without losing the culture and quality that made companies successful in the first place. Value the connection if you're open to it, and then sign off as you would. Again, notice the structure. We've got that hook, a specific, timely, and very relevant to where they're currently at. We've got the bridge. We're talking about the relevant expertise tied up to their particular context. And then we've got this value prop, ongoing value, and shared insights is what we picked up on that one. And then that soft close, again, very respectful. taking the pressure out completely. It's so much nicer to receive emails like this um, from people. So so these templates, they're not meant to be copied verbatim because that would defeat the entire purpose. But they're meant to illustrate the principles that make the connection requests work. So just to make them clear, specificity over generality. So don't be a generalist. Always, every time, those generic messages will get deleted. Whereas if you're specific, those messages are going to get read. And don't forget, curiosity over pitching. We've got to lead with, from genuine interest in them, not the product. Contribution over extraction. So focus on what you can give to the relationship, not on what you hope to get out of the relationship. And then respect over pressure. So give them control. Um, honor them. These principles, they're just tactics. So they're reflections of a deeper truth. People want to be seen, they want to be valued and respected. And when your connection requests demonstrate those qualities, then the acceptance just becomes a much more natural process. We talk about the targeting factor as well. Obviously, the messaging is one element. The targeting is another element. So messaging plus targeting equals better results. Now, if your targeting is way off, but you've got really good messaging, then you're not going to get the results that you could have got. So that's something we'll pick up on next week. Is all about how we can sharpen up the targeting. But I just want to address something really important before we close, and that's you could take this formula, use it, manipulate it, and do what you like with it. And you could really find something specific about the person to maybe create an illusion of interest. And you can craft messages that hit all the right notes without having zero authentic care for that person behind the profile. So please do not do that because it won't work in the short term. It might, but it's actually going to corrupt you in the long term because you've got to treat people. They're not objects to be manipulated. They're souls that need to be honored, and then you've got to build a business based on a foundation of truth rather than deception. And that's quite key. This formula works really well when it flows from genuine care and when you actually are really interested in the person that you're reaching out to, when you genuinely want to add value to them. So that authenticity and that respect, it just comes at a timely and natural way. And this isn't about being a good person, although that is a must and it helps, but it's about building something really sustainable. And that authentic interest, it can't be faked. People sense it, and they feel it and they respond to it. So take some words of advice there. So the next steps is to put this into action. Here's just a little simple plan that you might be able to use. So start today. Commit to applying this formula to every connection you send. You don't have to stick to this mechanically, but it's fairly, a thoughtful process. Let each component guide you as you craft those messages that you're crafting for individuals and building out your network and growing your relationships. Um, so reduce your volume by half. If you're typically sending out 20 connection requests a day, just go back, strip it right back, do 10. You might think that's counterintuitive, but when you actually use the formula and the frameworks, you'll get better results and a better response rate from this. So just send 10. And every time, make each one count. Do that research before you write. Spend a couple of minutes learning about them. Read their recent posts, look at the company's latest news, have a look at their blogs on their website, understand their world, where they're at before you enter into that world. Write specifically. So use that four component formula that we've gone through, but adapt it to each person. Try not to use a templated approach. And copy and pasting is definitely frowned upon these days, and LinkedIn's algorithm will pick up on that. So every message needs to be unique. Test it, refine it, track those acceptance rates, and notice kind of the trends and see what works, and then you can adjust based on that feedback. So that's the kind of the basic process. So some key takeaways then. Most importantly, you've got to approach this with patience. Rome wasn't built in a day. and neither is a thriving LinkedIn network. But correctly, with integrity and intention, it becomes a real asset that generates value for you for years to come. So remember that 7 seconds, it's quite key. So when you're sending those messages out, squeeze in that hook, bridge, the value proposition, and the soft close. Be specific. And don't forget to just track everything and then optimize relentlessly on everything that you're doing. Yeah. So don't the next week we're going to move on to week 3. We're going to talk about building your perfect customer avatar. And this is about stopping wasting your messages on the wrong people. If we're sending these high quality messages to the right people, we're going to get so much value back. So next week's workshop is all about building out the ICP. That's the ideal client persona, or the avatar. And we're going to use that to create some real detailed profiles using LinkedIn's data to refine your targeting criteria to ensure that every outreach message that we're sending is actually going to someone that needs what you offer. So it starts with getting the connections accepted, building the relationships, and that, if we can master that in those 7 seconds, then hopefully you've mastered the gateway to every relationship going forward. So I hope this has been helpful for all those tuning in. I'm just going to have a quick look on comments and things like that on LinkedIn. There's a little bit there. Someone says hello, everybody. Hello to you too on LinkedIn. Thank you for tuning in. Also, those guys on YouTube as well. Just a quick next step. So before we wrap up, I'd just like to invite you to our complimentary Leadeth School community. So this is where we have ongoing discussions, exclusive resources, templates. There's also networking opportunities in there with like-minded professionals. It's free to join. You gain access to all the recordings of the previous events that I've done on the LinkedIn lead generation masterclass. You'll learn some of the advanced techniques that we're using to enhance your LinkedIn engagement. It's a great place to be. Joining is very simple. Just head over to Leadeth, leadeth.io, and it's /school. That's spelled SKOOL. If you head over there, you'll be able to join there. Thank you, Teresa, for your comment as well. That's okay that you were late. Make sure you join back and watch this from the start, because there's been some real gems here today. Additionally, you might be interested in a free one-to-one discovery consultation. Would welcome that, just to add value to what you're doing. During those calls, we discuss what your current lead gen looks like, identify any pain points, and just create a real personalized plan that's going to help you to achieve your business goals using Leadeth's powerful tools, and how I can best help you. It's very much a no pressure call, solely focused on helping you optimize your strategies and overcome any obstacles that you might be facing at the moment. So 2 things there: the Leadeth School group and discovery call with me. Feel free to DM me or click on my calendar link in the chat, which I can leave with this video. Back into the room. I know Simon's with us. It's a bit quiet here today, the actual Google room. Any comments from yourself, Simon, or feedback? Thumbs up is enough for me. Great. Good to see you, and we'll catch up Friday, no doubt. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and I'm going to say goodbye for now. See you next week, where we dive into that week 3, building the customer journey and avatar.